Hello, I'm Dr. Liana, and I need to share something that has profound implications for everyone over the age of 60. For the past 19 years working in gerontology and preventive medicine, I've observed a pattern that most doctors don't discuss with their aging patients. There is a specific daily habit that the vast majority of people over 60 continue doing, a habit so common and so normalized that nobody questions it. Yet this habit is directly accelerating the aging process at the cellular level. It's increasing inflammation throughout your body. It's degrading your cognitive function. It's weakening your immune system. It's accelerating telomere shortening, which is essentially aging at the genetic level. And the remarkable thing is that most people are completely unaware they're doing it. The habit I'm talking about is excessive sitting. Not just sitting in general, but the specific pattern of prolonged, uninterrupted sitting that characterizes modern life, particularly for people over 60 who often have more sedentary lifestyles. When you sit continuously for hours, something happens at the cellular level that most people don't understand. Your muscles, particularly the large muscles in your legs, are not contracting. These muscles are responsible for a metabolic function that's absolutely critical for health. They're responsible for glucose clearance. When your muscles contract, they pull glucose directly from your bloodstream without requiring insulin. This is one of the most powerful mechanisms your body has for maintaining stable blood sugar and preventing metabolic disease. But when you sit for hours without moving, your muscles aren't contracting. Your muscles aren't pulling glucose from your bloodstream. Your pancreas has to work harder to produce insulin to manage your blood sugar. Over time, your cells become resistant to insulin. Your pancreas has to produce more and more insulin. You develop metabolic dysfunction. Your blood sugar becomes unstable. Your weight increases. Your risk of developing type 2 diabetes increases dramatically. And all of this happens silently while you're simply sitting. I had a patient named Robert who was 64 years old. He was a retired accountant who'd spent 40 years sitting at a desk working with spreadsheets. After retiring, he didn't dramatically change his habits. He sat at home reading, watching television, working on his computer. He considered himself relatively healthy. His fasting glucose was normal. His cholesterol was acceptable, but he was experiencing progressive fatigue, weight gain, despite eating the same amount, and increasing joint pain. His energy was declining. He felt like he was aging rapidly. When I assessed his activity patterns in detail, something striking emerged. Robert was sitting for approximately 15 hours per day. He'd wake up, sit for breakfast, sit while working on his computer, sit for lunch, sit in the afternoon, sit for dinner, sit while watching television. His only movement was walking to the bathroom and from room to room in his house. His muscles were almost never contracting. His glucose metabolism was severely compromised. His metabolic flexibility, his ability to switch between burning glucose and burning fat, had essentially disappeared. His body was in a state of constant metabolic dysfunction. This wasn't a fasting glucose problem. This was a whole-day glucose problem driven by excessive sitting. When I explained to Robert that his sitting habit was accelerating his aging at the cellular level, he was initially skeptical. How could sitting be harmful? He wasn't eating poorly. He wasn't sedentary in the sense of being completely inactive. He was just sitting. But sitting for extended periods is fundamentally different from being active. When you sit, you're not just resting. You're actually creating a metabolic state that's harmful. Your muscles aren't contracting. Your circulation is compromised. Your cognitive function declines. Your inflammation increases. Multiple studies have shown that sitting for extended periods increases all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease risk, and cancer risk independent of exercise. In other words, even if you exercise regularly, if you sit for most of the day, you're still significantly accelerating your aging. The mechanism goes deeper than just glucose metabolism. When you sit for extended periods, your circulation is reduced. Your blood flow decreases. This means less oxygen and nutrients reaching your tissues. Your lymphatic system, which depends on muscle contractions to move fluid, becomes sluggish. This lymphatic stagnation impairs your immune function and allows inflammatory toxins to accumulate in your tissues. Your posture changes. Sitting for hours causes your hip flexors to shorten, your chest muscles to tighten, your back muscles to weaken. This postural distortion puts stress on your spine, your joints, and your nervous system. It contributes to chronic pain and reduces your functional mobility. Additionally, prolonged sitting increases oxidative stress and inflammation throughout your body. When your muscles aren't contracting regularly, they don't produce adequate antioxidant enzymes. Reactive oxygen species accumulate. Your cells experience oxidative damage. This oxidative stress activates inflammatory pathways. Your body produces more inflammatory cytokines. This chronic low-grade inflammation is the foundation of accelerated aging. It contributes to cognitive decline, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, and cancer. It's measured through markers like C-reactive protein and interleukin-6. I've tested hundreds of sedentary patients over 60, and the vast majority have significantly elevated inflammatory markers directly attributable to their sitting habits. Here's what's most important to understand. This isn't about exercise. You could exercise 30 minutes per day and still be accelerating your aging if you sit for the remaining 15 hours. Exercise is important, but it doesn't counteract the damage of prolonged sitting. You need both movement throughout the day and dedicated exercise. The sitting habit that's accelerating aging is specifically the pattern of uninterrupted sitting. If you sit for 2 hours without moving, your metabolic function becomes compromised. Your glucose uptake decreases. Your circulation decreases. Your inflammation increases. Sitting for 6 hours without moving is worse. Sitting for 8 hours without moving is significantly worse. I worked with a patient named Margaret who was 62 years old. She was a retired teacher who spent most of her day reading and managing household affairs. She was sitting approximately 14 hours per day. Her fasting glucose was 98, which is normal. But her 2-hour glucose response after breakfast was 152 milligrams per deciliter, which is elevated. Her A1C was 5.9, which is in the pre-diabetic range. She had persistent fatigue. She had joint pain in her knees and hips. She had brain fog. Her cognitive function had noticeably declined compared to 5 years earlier. Her doctor told her everything looked fine based on her fasting glucose and A1C, but Margaret knew something was wrong. When I explained that her sitting habit was the primary culprit, something shifted. I didn't tell her to exercise more. I told her to sit less. I implemented a protocol where every single hour for at least 5 minutes she had to stand and move. This could be walking around her house, doing light stretching, climbing stairs, or doing any movement that engaged her muscles. Within the first week, she noticed her energy improved slightly. Within 2 weeks, her afternoon fatigue had decreased noticeably. Within 4 weeks, her 2-hour glucose response had dropped to 128, a significant improvement. Within 2 months, her A1C had decreased to 5.6, moving out of the pre-diabetic range. Within 4 months, her joint pain had improved dramatically. Her brain fog had cleared. Her energy had returned. What happened is that frequent, brief muscle contractions throughout the day dramatically improved her glucose clearance. Her muscles were pulling glucose from her bloodstream regularly. Her pancreas didn't have to produce excessive insulin. Her inflammatory markers decreased. Her oxidative stress decreased. Her metabolic health improved, and as her metabolic health improved, her systemic health improved. Her aging rate slowed. The specific protocol I recommend for anyone over 60 who has excessive sitting habits is remarkably simple, but requires intentional implementation. Every single hour, you need to interrupt your sitting with at least 5 minutes of movement. This could be a short walk. It could be bodyweight exercises like squats, push-ups, or planks. It could be climbing stairs. It could be dancing to music. The key is that you're contracting your muscles, increasing your heart rate, and stimulating your circulation. This 5-minute interruption every hour might not sound like much, but it's extraordinarily powerful. Research published in Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise showed that breaking up sitting time with brief movement breaks significantly improved glucose metabolism throughout the day. Participants who stood and moved for 5 minutes every hour had dramatically improved glucose responses to meals compared to participants who sat continuously. The effect was substantial. It was as effective as some diabetes medications for improving glucose control. And it required no pharmaceutical intervention, no complicated protocols, just intentional movement breaks. Beyond hourly movement breaks, you need dedicated exercise. I recommend resistance training at least 3 times per week for people over 60. Resistance training is uniquely powerful for maintaining muscle mass, which is the primary determinant of metabolic health as you age. It's also powerful for maintaining bone density, balance, and functional mobility. 3 sessions of 30 to 40 minutes per week is sufficient. Each session should include exercises that challenge your major muscle groups. Squats, deadlifts, push-ups, rows, and overhead presses are excellent. Additionally, incorporate at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity most days of the week. This could be brisk walking, swimming, cycling, or any activity that elevates your heart rate. The combination of resistance training and aerobic activity is more effective than either alone for slowing aging at the cellular level. But here's what's crucial. These exercise sessions don't counteract the damage of sitting for the remaining 15 to 20 hours per day. You need the exercise and the frequent movement breaks throughout the day. I want to share another patient story because it illustrates the power of addressing the sitting habit. His name was James, and he was 67 years old. He was a retired engineer who prided himself on his health. He exercised 5 times per week, running for 45 minutes each session. But he worked on his computer for most of the day. He sat during meals. He sat while reading. He sat while relaxing in the evening. He was sitting approximately 12 to 14 hours per day, despite exercising regularly. When I assessed his metabolic health, something striking emerged. Despite exercising regularly, his inflammatory markers were elevated. His fasting glucose was 102, which is slightly elevated. His A1C was 5.9 in the pre-diabetic range. His muscle mass was declining despite his exercise routine. His bone density was decreasing. He was experiencing early cognitive decline. His energy was declining. He assumed all of this was just normal aging. When I explained that his sitting habit was essentially canceling out the benefits of his exercise, he was shocked. But he understood the mechanism immediately. He committed to implementing hourly movement breaks. He set phone alarms every hour as reminders. Every hour he stood and did 5 minutes of movement. He added walking meetings to his schedule. He started using a standing desk for part of his workday. He got up during television commercials and did bodyweight exercises. Within 3 weeks, his fasting glucose had decreased to 99. Within 6 weeks, his A1C had decreased to 5.7. Within 12 weeks, his inflammatory markers had decreased significantly. His energy improved. His cognitive function improved. His muscle mass stabilized and began increasing again despite no change to his exercise routine. The only change was interrupting his sitting with frequent movement breaks. The reason this works is that short movement breaks have profound metabolic effects. When you contract your muscles, even briefly, you activate glucose transporters in your cells. You improve your insulin sensitivity. You activate your mitochondria, the energy-producing structures in your cells. You trigger the production of antioxidant enzymes. You improve your circulation. You stimulate your lymphatic system. These effects accumulate throughout the day. A person who moves for 5 minutes every hour has dramatically different metabolic function than a person who sits all day and then exercises for 45 minutes. Beyond the metabolic effects, addressing the sitting habit has profound effects on musculoskeletal health. Sitting shortens your hip flexors, weakens your glutes and back muscles, and contributes to postural distortion. This postural distortion causes pain and reduces your functional mobility. By regularly standing and moving, you're maintaining your postural alignment, keeping your muscles strong and flexible, and maintaining your ability to function independently as you age. This is crucial because loss of functional mobility is one of the primary drivers of accelerated aging in older populations. Additionally, frequent movement breaks improve your cognitive function. Your brain uses approximately 20% of your body's glucose. When your muscles are regularly contracting and pulling glucose from your bloodstream, your brain has better glucose availability. Additionally, movement stimulates the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a compound that supports brain cell health and plasticity. Regular movement breaks throughout the day improve your memory, your executive function, and your attention span. I worked with a patient named Patricia, who was 65 years old. She was experiencing cognitive decline. She was having trouble remembering things. Her concentration was poor. She felt like her mind was foggy. She was sitting approximately 15 hours per day. Her doctor suggested cognitive testing to rule out early dementia. But before pursuing that route, I addressed her sitting habit. I implemented the same hourly movement protocol. Within 2 weeks, her mental clarity improved. Within 4 weeks, her memory had improved noticeably. Within 8 weeks, her cognitive function had improved so dramatically that her family commented on the change. When she eventually had cognitive testing done, it showed no signs of decline. Her cognitive problems were driven by poor glucose metabolism and chronic inflammation caused by excessive sitting, not by neurological disease. Once she addressed the sitting habit, her cognitive function normalized. Here's what I want you to understand about this daily habit that's accelerating aging after 60. It's not about exercise versus sedentary lifestyles. It's about the pattern of your movement throughout the day. You need both frequent movement breaks throughout the day and dedicated exercise. You need to interrupt sitting regularly. You need to maintain your muscle mass. You need to keep your glucose metabolism functional. All of this works together to slow your aging rate. The protocol is straightforward. Set hourly alarms on your phone or watch as reminders to move. Every hour for at least 5 minutes, interrupt your sitting with movement. Stand up, walk around, do bodyweight exercises, climb stairs, dance. Whatever keeps your muscles contracting. Additionally, commit to resistance training 3 times per week for 30 to 40 minutes. Include exercises that challenge your major muscle groups. Additionally, incorporate 30 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity most days of the week. This combination of frequent movement breaks and dedicated exercise is extraordinarily powerful for slowing your aging rate. What happens when you implement this protocol? Within 2 weeks, most people notice improved energy. Within 4 weeks, improved metabolic markers. Within 2 months, improved cognitive function, improved mood, and improved physical function. The changes aren't subtle. They're noticeable, and they're driven by addressing a daily habit that most people don't even realize is accelerating their aging. I want to tell you about one more patient, because her story shows the power of changing this habit later in life. Her name was Susan, and she was 71 years old. She was a widow who'd become increasingly sedentary after her husband died. She spent most of her day sitting, reading, watching television, or sitting at her computer. She was tired all the time. She had chronic pain in her joints. She felt like she'd aged dramatically in the previous 3 years. She was concerned about her independence as she aged. She was experiencing falls due to balance problems. Her family was encouraging her to move into assisted living. When I assessed her situation, she was sitting approximately 17 hours per day. Her muscle mass had declined significantly. Her strength had declined. Her balance was poor. Her glucose metabolism was severely compromised. Her inflammatory markers were extremely elevated. I explained that her sitting habit was the primary problem. If we could address it, we could reverse much of the decline she'd experienced. I implemented an intensive protocol. I started with very brief movement breaks, just 2 minutes every hour, because her current fitness level made longer breaks challenging. But we were consistent. Every single hour, 2 minutes of movement. Within 2 weeks, her energy improved. Within 4 weeks, her balance improved. Within 2 months, her strength had improved noticeably. Within 4 months, she'd regained enough strength and balance that her family felt comfortable with her remaining in her home. She'd reversed much of the functional decline she'd experienced. She was aging slower. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Assess your current sitting habits. How many hours per day are you sitting? Be honest. Most people over 60 are sitting 12 to 16 hours per day. If you're sitting more than 8 hours per day, you need to change this pattern. Set hourly reminders on your phone or watch. Commit to 5 minutes of movement every single hour. This is non-negotiable. Make it a habit. Make it automatic. After 2 weeks, it will feel normal. You'll feel physically different. Additionally, commit to resistance training 3 times per week if you're not already doing it. If you're already exercising, excellent, but ensure your exercise includes resistance training. Additionally, ensure you're getting 30 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity most days. If you're over 60 and not currently exercising, start gradually. Begin with short walks. Build up gradually. But start. Your aging rate depends on it. If this information was valuable, subscribe to this channel for science-based health strategies specifically designed for people over 60. Hit the like button so this video reaches more people who are accelerating their aging through excessive sitting. Check out my other videos on exercise, metabolic health, and functional fitness for older adults. Your aging rate is not determined by your chronological age. It's determined by your habits. The sitting habit that most people over 60 maintain is directly accelerating their aging. By addressing this habit through frequent movement breaks and dedicated exercise, you can dramatically slow your aging rate. You can maintain your energy, your cognitive function, your physical strength, and your independence. You can age well. Start today. Set those hourly reminders. Commit to the movement breaks. Experience what your body is capable of when you address this accelerating habit. Thank you for watching.